Hello, in this recording I'm going to show how to build compensation eligibility based on a custom object which has eligibility rules directly tied to the custom objects so that we don't have to use the eligibility rules that are usually set up under plan setup eligibility in a composition template. And the reason for that is to help customers save time when they run the mass update worksheets jobs overnight during their composition planning cycle. Typically, customers with a large number of employees in the worksheets during their composition cycle will see very long jobs. So if we talk about customers with 15,000 or plus employees, the jobs that run to update the worksheets and refresh with the latest data from Employee Central can take up to 10, 15 hours sometimes. It all depends on how many rules were created and how many employees, active and inactive, or in the environment of the customer. So over the past year, we came up with new ideas to manage composition eligibility involving custom object, like I said. And in this call, we're going to show how to build that in an environment. How to replace the eligibility rules that are usually created under plan setup eligibility with an automated way to drive eligibility based on a custom object and an integration center job. So it's going to be probably about 30 minutes or so. First I'm going to show the users that we're going to use for the demo. I'm going to present the typical way of managing eligibility through those the rules that everybody knows from plan setup eligibility. And then from there, we're going to look at how to move the template to the new design. So here we have a worksheet that I launched in this demo environment. I have a couple of employees that I want to highlight here. So Pamela is a grade 5, and I have two rules that I'm going to migrate to the new design that will help customers save a lot of time when running their eligibility mass update overnight. So I have one that completely excludes users that are either grade 5 or grade 6. So we can see here we don't have a grade 6, but we have two employees that are grade 5. Pay grade 5. So that's the first thing I want to show. So Pamela and Lucy are going to get excluded when I tie the rule to the template, I apply it, and I relaunch my worksheet. They're not going to show at all because they'll be fully excluded by the rule. And then I have another rule that is actually looking at this information here. So the date of last increase, which is a custom field in the compensation information section of Employee Central. We can see, so I built a rule that says if someone has a date of last increase greater than September 1st, 2022, then the person is on the worksheet but cannot get a merit increase. So the merit here will be grayed out. So these are the rules that are already set up for the template that we're going to migrate to be based on a custom object instead of tied directly to our template. So let's get started. So we're going to go to Comp Home. Find our template here. We can delete the worksheet. We'll relaunch one after we apply the eligibility rules, the traditional ones, the ones everybody knows about. So here, close. We're going to tie these rules. So first we'll start with the rules as they are in SuccessFactors typically. So through plan setup, plan details, eligibility. So we're going to add a rule. These two rules. So the first one is salary exclusion. That's the one with pay grade 5 and 6 that I mentioned. And the second one is increased exclusion, which grays out the merit for people that have a date of last salary increase greater than September 1st, I believe. We'll check in a second. So yes, yes, and no. Also promotion, no. Adjustment, no, but maybe lump sum, yes. So this is the situation that we have before doing the migration to the new design that I will show. So let's run it and make sure we create a worksheet, make sure everything is working as expected, and then we have a good starting situation to build the design and be able to compare our new design with the expected behavior. So here, this is the setup. So let's take a look at the rules. So this one is, like I said, grade 5 or grade 6 is going to be excluded. So that these are the two people that I showed, Pamela and I believe Lucy. And then we have this one, which adds the person to the worksheet, but only allows a lump sum to be given. So, and this one is, I think, pulling the field from composition information is on or after September 1st. Yeah, so it's all good compared to what I explained. So I applied it, so now I can create my worksheet for Alison Mahoney. Okay, I should probably have checked in monitor composition jobs, but I've prepared this so I know it was going to work here. So here, yep, so here the two users I highlighted before, Pamela and Lucy, were excluded because they are grade 5. And Alexander is on the worksheet, but he's not eligible for merit nor promotion nor adjustment, only for lump sum, as we can see here. So this is what we're aiming to replace these rules that are currently that were built that we just added to the template. We're going to replace them and put them in a custom object that is going to have business rules tied to it and is going to automate everything the same exact way than we have it here, except that it's going to take the rules out of the template, which will save a lot of time when running the manage, update all worksheets jobs overnight. So the first step is to create a custom object. So before we even touch the composition template that we have, we need to create a custom object. So to create a custom object, we've got to go to configure object definition and create new object. And we're going to call this one salary planning eligibility. Effective dating is going to be basic. API visibility is going to be editable. Here we're going to give it a nice label. Okay. Then there's on two important things. The first one is the external code must be of type user. That's very important. So this is very important, and also having API visibility as editable is very important. So here, external name, we don't really need that. We can remove it. Effective start date, we don't touch. And then we are going to add two fields. The first one is going to be compensation eligible. And the second one is going to be merit eligible. We can leave them as string and simply save the object. So now we have the object that is going to drive whether an employee is going to be eligible either for the whole worksheet or for merit only. Now that we have this, the next step is to permission the object so we can access manage data for this object and do some testing, more detailed testing. I believe this user doesn't have in this environment permission to touch RBP, so I will just for the purpose of this use my account, my other super admin account instead of comp administrator. So permission role. And the object we just created is going to show under miscellaneous. Here, miscellaneous permissions, and we can search for salary, salary here, salary planning eligibility. Okay, done, save changes. Okay, so now that we have this, I can go back as comp admin. Now that we have this, the next step is going to be to map our compensation template to these new fields from the MDF object that we created. So we're going to go to our template, and we're going to remove the eligibility rules that were there. So we'll delete the worksheet as well. And remove the eligibility rules, because eventually we don't want any eligibility rules to be here. We'll fully replace this with the values from the MDF object. Remove, yes. And once we've deleted the rules here, we're going to go to design worksheet and create eligibility fields. So in this section here, select eligibility fields and add two in our case. In our case, we want the compensation one that's going to drive whether a person is fully excluded from the worksheet or not, and merit. So compensation is going to be mapped to the MDF we just created. So employment details and salary planning eligibility. So we're going to map here. The MDF objects can be accessed through employment details, and then we need this compensation eligible for this field. And for merit, we're going to do the same, except select a different field. That field is the merit eligible here. Okay, save. So now the compensation template is set up already to get the eligibility from the object. So now the two remaining steps are: how do we build the business rules, and how do we automate everything, just like the eligibility rules that were built here would do when we click on apply for us. So this is what we're going to see now. So we have to recreate the business rules that we had differently, so that we can tie them to our custom object. So to do that, we need to go to configure business rules. We can't use the ones that were already created that we deleted. We can't use these. We have to fully recreate them because the parameters and a few things are going to be different. So configure business rule. And so we're going to create the first one that's going to make pay grades 5 and 6 ineligible. Let's do this one first. So we click here on basic. And I believe basic might disappear in one of the next releases and be replaced by some kind of subsetting inside metadata framework. So we'll have to see which one inside metadata framework is the relevant one for us to keep using this design. But I think until then, we can still create basics. So my design has been tested for basic, and basic, when they remove the option to have basic rules, if I understood correctly, that's what they're working on. Basic will still work. So what we build right now will still work. It's just like in the future, if you cannot see basic here, then look for a rule inside metadata framework, maybe of type initialize, that you will be able to add on the on-save section of the custom object. So for now, I'll do it like this, basic, and we're going to call this compensation eligibility. The rule type we don't need to enter, but the base object we need to select our custom object. So salary planning eligibility. This is very important. If you don't select this as a base object, you will not be able to tie it to the object as an on-save rule. So now continue. Now you go to here to salary planning, and what we're going to do is we're going to build exactly the same that we had in the old rule, the traditional compensation eligibility rule. So we're going to do if external code. So we have to go through the object, which is based on user, so you can access through this object by selecting external code category, all the job information elements. So job information, pay grade is equal to 5. And then we can copy and then paste and then do an OR. So now we have everything. We just need to find the 6. And now we have our condition. Then that's the most important thing here. Probably, well, this is very important too, but so here we're going to do then set compensation eligible to be equal to false, because we're building an exclusion rule. So we want to exclude people that are grade 5 or 6. Then we're going to do an else if, and we're going to copy this in here. And we're simply going to do is not equal to, and is not equal to, and change this to be and. And then the then will be set compensation eligible to be equal to false, true, sorry. So it's important to have the other condition. So this is the condition to make someone ineligible, and this is the condition that will make someone eligible. We need to have both. True. And then actually, now that I think about it, I'm not even sure we need both. I think if the field is empty, if you don't have the true, the else if that makes it true, then it will still add the person to the rule. The most important is actually, since we're building an exclusion rule, the most important is the false. I think true or blank means the person is not excluded in this exclusion rule. So you could actually, I'm pretty sure that if you remove this condition, you would get a blank for people that are not salary grade in 6, and that would be considered as this person is not picked up by the rule, is not going to be excluded from the worksheets. But for now, this is the design I tested, so I'll keep it in here. Okay, so we have our first rule. It's saved. Now we're going to do the second rule on merit. So create a new rule. Same thing, basic. We're going to call it merit, or merit promo adjustment eligibility, because it impacts all of them. And same thing, base object, salary, planning eligibility, continue. And so we said, yeah, we said compensation information. So we're going to do if external code. We can go through job information here, or through employment details. I can never remember. Oh, it's through employment details. Compensation information, date of last salary adjustment is on or after. So it's yeah, it's also an exclusion rule. So if it's on or after September 1st, 2022, you can delete this. Then set merit eligible to be equal to false. We'll build the other condition for true. I think it's good because then when you maintain the data, you can see if it's true or false, and the blank don't create doubts for the administrator. So it's good to build the else if too. So you build the else if. We can just copy this, paste it, and then we're going to do is before 9.1, then set merit eligible to be equal to true. Okay, so now that we have both our rules built into the system, how do we tie them to the object? And then in the very last step, how do we automate the feed of data without having to do any file import through Integration Center? So I'll show this now. So the first thing we want to do is tie these rules to the object we created that will drive eligibility. So we go back to configure object definition, and we select our object, which we call salary planning. And we do take action, make correction. And at the bottom here is a section called save rules. So we're going to first select compensation eligibility and then merit promo adjustment eligibility and hit save. Now that the rules are tied to the object, we can do some testing. So we're going to do, even before we mass feed the data for every single employee in the system into this object, what we want to do is make sure that these rules are actually working. And a quick way to do that is to go to Manage Data, select Create New, select the object, salary planning, and then we can enter, for example, as of the effective start date of our template, which is 10/1/2022. We can enter one of the people, so we know, for example, Pamela and Lucy from our example in the beginning should be excluded. So for them, we need to have compensation eligible equal false in here. So what happens if I do, if I search for Pamela and I save? Yeah, so I get false. So on save, the system is going to scan through the data that the person has in the system and return false or true. Now what happens if I do someone else? And it doesn't matter here that she's merit eligible because she's false here, so she'll be excluded no matter what. So now what happens if we do someone else, someone who is compensation eligible? So without changing anything, we're going to do, I think it was Claire Pendry. So effective October 1st. And she should be true to both on save. So save. Okay, true to both. So because I've tested this before, I know it's going to work when we launch the worksheets, which we will do at the end of the recording. Now, the last step is for us to feed a record effective 10/01/2022 for every employee on a nightly basis. So that's what we're going to take a look at now. So as a system administrator, once you've created this design, this is what is going to drive eligibility, but you don't want to have to do anything every day. So that's what we're going to see now. How do you do that? So now we're going to delete these two records. And then we're going to feed the data from the system into here through the Integration Center. So the Integration Center is a way to create APIs in SuccessFactors in a very easy way. And it's very simple. It's just that we need a little bit of practice to master a few things, such as, for example, how to make sure that the effective date is always the same. So I'll show this in this call. So it always takes a little bit of time to load the first screens, and then it's pretty fast. So here we're going to go to My Integrations, create a new integration, more integration types, success factors in source type, destination type, success factors, then scheduled, and then create. For search for entities, we're going to basically use job info. We can search for job and then take job information here. And what we're going to feed is just the user ID basically. And then upon save of the record, the system will populate the true or false for us. So we just click on job information, click select. We're going to call it daily compensation, salary planning, eligibility feed. And then configure fields. This is where it gets a little bit technical. So here, once we get to configure fields, we have our source here, for which we need just the user ID, and then we need to map this source to our custom object for eligibility. So by design, once you click here, you get the same than the source in the target, but this is not what we want. So we're going to click on it and delete it. Now it says no data, so we're going to go here plus, and we're going to search for our object, salary planning eligibility. If you don't see your object here after you created it, which can happen sometimes, if you don't see it here, just search for actions for something called OData API, and one of the links says refresh, and you click on a button that says refresh, and then you will see it show here. I think it's called OData, something like that. OData metadata refresh and export. So you click on that. I'm not going to do it. And once you click on that, you see refresh a button. You click on it, and then it takes a few seconds, and then you will see this appear. So here we select our custom object. We add it. And then all we want to do here is map the user ID from job info to the external code of this object. Once we have that, we need to make sure that the effective start of the record that's going to be created is always the same than our template, our salary planning template, Employee Central effective date, which in this case is October 1st, 2022. And to make sure that the date of the record is always October 1st, we need to use a little trick. So we're going to go to this switch to test view here, and we're going to right click on effective start date, and we're going to do more field options. Here, make sure it shows as date time, which it should by default. Then in format, we're going to click this one here, and then just enter the date. So you follow the format instructions. So 2022, then the month 10, then the day 01, T 00 00 00 00 Z, and save. You can run a couple preview records if you want to test your design. So that's something that is really good to know when you're building integrations, is you don't have to run it on the whole database at first. You can you can obviously make filters and select only a couple user IDs through here, or you can, once you've filtered on a few user ID, you can just run it on these few user IDs that you filtered, or on the preview records that are showing on this page. We're not going to do this because I know it works. I just want to show you if you wanted to do a couple tests before you run it on the whole database, because if you have 30,000 people in an environment, it might take a while. It's usually pretty quick, even for 30,000, like maybe 10 minutes for 30,000 or something like that. So if you want to filter by user ID, you can go here to filter and do advanced filter, browse, then entity tree view, user ID, change association to user ID, and then enter your user ID if you wanted to try your integration. Here, I've tested this before to prepare this recording, so I know it's working. So I'm just going to cancel this, but you just enter someone's user ID or a couple of people's user ID, and then you don't have to save anything. You just go straight to review and run, and you run your integration, and it will just run it on a couple of people. So let's delete this, go back to configure fields. So now that we have this, we can proceed to doing the review and run. If we want to, we can also schedule it. Excuse me. So if you schedule it, you can select daily, and you can select actually the competition cycle time. And this is where this is really great because um, when you are a system administrators in SuccessFactors, as of today, you do not have the possibility to schedule your mass update worksheets, jobs yourself. It's something that the product team of SuccessFactors, I believe, is working on. But as of today, if you want to say for 3 weeks, run a job every day that is going to update my composition worksheets and also eligibility at the same time, you have to ask someone who has provisioning access or a certified consultant to help you, or create a ticket to SAP support. You cannot do it yourself as an system administrator. So this workaround is great because it actually allows you to control when your job, at least for the eligibility part, not for the update worksheets, but for the eligibility part that we're building here, you can control when it starts and when it ends. So here we'll just do it, let's say, yeah, from today to, doesn't really matter here because we just do a one shot. You can set an email if you want to get a copy of the logs. Okay, next. And now we're going to run it now so that we can actually test it. So we did see before when we were in managed data, there was no data. I deleted all the data from this object, right? So as soon as, and we could actually, before we run it, we could actually check that again, just to make sure we're aligned. So if I go to manage data and I enter my, the name of my object, I will see there is no data. And then after we run the integration, we'll see everything popping up for everybody. So salary planning eligibility. Yeah, there's no data, even if I include inactive users. Yeah, so now we're about to run this integration center job, save it, and then as soon as it saves, it will run. The job was submitted, so it's running. If you want to keep track of the in progress, you can go to monitor job. Sorry, no, not monitor job, integration center. And then go to monitor integrations, and then you will see your job show here. And you will see the status of the job. Yeah, so we can see here the daily salary planning. This is the one I just kicked off. So it's already completed successfully. And so I only have maybe 500 people in this environment, so it's really quick, but it would take maybe a little bit longer for 30,000, even though it's all usually really quick. So you can get access to the logs. If you go to summary so far, if you click here, you can see links to the different logs for this job. The number of records processed, so I don't even have 500, I have only 291. Yep. So now we can close this pop-up, and if we just refresh this page here, manage data. Now where we saw there was no data earlier. So if you just salary planning eligibility now, we can see data for every single employee in the system. So that's not a problem. We don't have to we can run it on the whole database. It's no problem. The system will automatically update true and false based on the business rules. So if we look now at the new record for Pamela, it's still the same thing. Actually, so one of the drawbacks, and I think there's a way to fix that, but it's just when you search for someone here, you can't search by name. You have to use so I think Pamela is 10119. Yeah, lucky I remember. And so here, if I look at Pamela, we can see false or true. So that is how your eligibility rule is configured as an alternative, and that will save a tremendous amount of time when the manager update, mass update worksheet job run overnight. We clearly saw a customer that had jobs that were running for 14 hours go down to 3 or 4 hours, basically. So tremendous improvement of performance through these custom objects. Now, we need to test, and we also need to test what happens when the data changes in EC. So let's test. Let's launch a worksheet. So we're expecting to have exactly the same outcome now than we had initially when we launched with the usual eligibility rules from inside the template plan setup. So like I said, because we mapped our eligibility fields directly to the MDF object, we don't need any eligibility rules. We can run this, and the system, upon creating the worksheet, will read inside this MDF object that we have mapped here to our eligibility fields to basically determine whether the person is eligible for each of the components we design here. So it's normal that there is no eligibility rule defined here. It's totally normal. That's what we were aiming for. And so manage worksheets, create worksheets. Mahoney. One plan created. Okay, so now I go to my inbox as comp admin to find the worksheet I just launched, which is here. And so I can see that neither Pamela nor Lucy are here. They are excluded by the compensation eligible flag, which was automatically updated as false thanks to the integration center job and the business rule tied to our custom object. And we can see Alexander is also grayed out, just like at the beginning. Now let's do an even more complete demo of this workaround. And let's say, for example, what happens if Claire becomes ineligible? What happens if Claire gets promoted during the cycle to a grade 5, which makes her ineligible? Okay, we can do that. So we're just going to go to the employee profile for her and make sure that she has a salary grade 5 effective 10/1/2022. So we go to job information for her, and we pull all of the records, and then we're going to click on well, not this one. Actually, this one I can because this is after our cutoff date for the compensation template, so we can actually delete this one. We don't need it. And then I'll make the change inside in here in August 10 record 2020. It's easier to just edit a record because when you insert new records, sometimes it can trigger roles and everything. So I just edit this one, select it, click on edit, and here select grade 5, which now makes her ineligible. So now that she's ineligible on our top of stack record that is effective on 10/1 on October 1st, 2022, all we have to do now is run an updates all worksheets from come home as an administrator. And basically what will happen is, oh, sorry, no, before we do that, the object that drives eligibility hasn't been refreshed through an integration center job. So first, before we update the worksheets, the comp worksheets, we need to rerun the integration center job, which you can do manually if you want to, or as we did it, it got scheduled to run every day at the same time. So you just have to wait, and then overnight it will run and update Claire's record. So let's before we do anything, let's just do a quick check on managed data for Claire. Oh, I don't remember her ID, so I'll just make sure I pull her ID here. (101.014). So we're just going to go manage data. salary planning. So she's at true on both, right? Because she was eligible based on the business rules we built on both. So now what we're expecting is when we manually trigger the integration center job again, she will become composition eligible equal false because she just got our top of stack record effective 10.1 is now grade 5, which based on our business rule is excluded. So after the integration center job that we're about to kick off says completed, we're going to come back here and it will say composition eligible equal false. And after that, we'll go into the template and we'll do a mass update of the template. We won't need to kick off the update eligibility as well because we don't have eligibility rules inside the template. It will read directly from here. So let's do it. So integration center. My integrations. Here is the the job we created. So there's no way to run it directly from these action buttons. You have to enter the job and go to review and then run now. Okay, it got submitted. So now we go back to integration center. I think there's a way to access. Actually, yeah, you can click on instead of going back to integration center, you can just click here on the execution manager, and then you can go back to through here, monitor everything. So we can see in progress. So before we go back to manage data to make sure that she got switched to false, we need to wait that this we need to wait until this finishes running. So we can do a right click reload. Completed successfully. Okay, so now we're good. We can go back to manage data and check salary planning eligibility for Claire. And now we can see that she's false because we changed her data in EC. So the business rules apply and make her ineligible. So what happens now in the compensation worksheet? So now what happens is when you were added on a worksheet upon first launch and you become ineligible after, if you're ineligible based on the eligibility criteria as defined for the template, but you're still active in the system, so you will never be fully removed from the worksheet. So what happens is when the system administrator manually triggers the update all worksheets job or has it scheduled to run overnight, ideally in this design after, of course, after the integration center job runs. And as I said in the beginning, a system administrator currently cannot schedule this update all worksheets job to run by themselves. We need a ticket to SAP support or a certified consultant to do it for us from provisioning. So once the integration center job has ran, we need to update all worksheets, and an employee who was there upon first launch of the worksheets and becomes ineligible in EC will not be fully removed from the worksheet, but will be grayed out. So that's what the expected behavior we're hoping to see now. And when we run it, we need to click this box called changes in eligibility, but only the first one. We don't need to check the second one, which if we don't use this workaround, this new design I'm proposing here and I'm demoing, and we use the normal plan setup eligibility compensation business rules, we have to check this. And this checkbox is actually what creates the slowdowns in the jobs. Why? Because every time the system updates, runs, and applies the eligibility rule on a template, it scans the entire database, active users and inactive users. So even if you have 30,000 active users in your environment, but you have, let's say, 500,000 inactive because you need to keep track of movements and people for legal reasons, the rules will run on 530,000 users. There's no way to prevent that from happening. And that's why these jobs can take forever to run. And that's why this design we're demoing now is solving this. So in our case, we don't need to check this. This is only if you use the legacy or the normal, let's say, plan setup eligibility rules. Here we just need to check this and then click on update. And so once this job finishes running, which we can monitor in compensation jobs, so we have completed here. So now we can go back to the worksheet. We still the same worksheet. We didn't delete and create a new worksheet. Now we're expecting Claire to be grayed out, which is the case. So yeah, so that concludes this workaround. Honestly, this is one of the most useful findings for compensation administrators, I think, in many years from what I've seen. These custom objects never stop to surprise us. It wasn't possible, this design recorded here wasn't possible until about a year ago when the composition product team allowed us to added these eligibility fields in design worksheet for us to be able to, and allowed us to map them to custom objects. And this design was actually first documented by a colleague, Phil McGovern. So this is an extension of what Phil had already documented, but it is an important extension because it shows that not only can you use these fields, these custom objects with true or false, but you can also automate them. And you don't have to wait, you don't have to use custom objects and manually upload your files. You can do that as well. It's really easy. If you wanted to mass import eligibility and these true or false for everybody, you could do it manually by file. But what I'm showing here is you can replace what is in the system by the normal eligibility rules and automate everything the exact same way, and then you will increase the performance of all of your jobs during the cycle so much. Like I said, from 14, 15 hours to down to 4 hours for a customer that has about 35,000 employees in their cycle. So a huge performance improvement. Yep, I hope this was helpful. Thanks for listening, and